From the moment artistic gymnastics began gaining popularity as an Olympic sport, the Soviet Union dominated in international competitions. Winning every Olympic team competition since 1952, the Soviets prided themselves on having the most powerful and graceful athletes in the world. Bringing home medals for the motherland was more important than anything, even the health and welfare of the athletes. This week on a special Olympic episode of Out of the Past, the tragedy of Elena Mukhina. Nobody could touch the Soviet team. They were unbeatable. Then, in 1976, a young Romanian girl changed everything by scoring the first perfect 10 in the history of the sport at the Montreal Games. Nadia Comaneci took home the all-around gold medal, beating Soviet favorites Olga Korbut and Nelly Kim. The Soviets still took home the team gold, but they were shaken. They immediately began training again. Elena Mukhina, a Muscovite born in June of 1960, wowed audiences when she began performing in senior competition. The Soviets saw the potential she had and started putting more pressure on her coach to train more difficult skills. It's important to remember that the equipment in the 1970s was very different from what it is today. The bars were closer together, the vault was essentially a pommel horse without handles, and the floor was dead. Gymnasts tumbled on the rock-hard ground with a small mat for protection. As you can see from the clip, Elena lands incredibly short and very low on her full twisting double back tumbling pass. Yet her coach forces her to do it again and again, not seeming to care how many times she lands on her head.
Прошло 15 лет, и время было совершенно другое. Сейчас свободы побольше. А тогда это было какое-то совершенно как кошмарное рабство. Могу я, не могу, хочу. Уже не говоря о том, что хочу, не хочу. Речь шла могу, не могу. И не можешь, а кого это интересует. Вот надо, иди и делай. Я говорю, я вот сейчас просто пойду и разобьюсь. Разбивайся. Это никого не интересует.
After winning gold at the 1978 World Championships, Elena became exactly the athlete that her country wanted her to be. Not just the next Nadia, but someone who could beat her. Athletes and judges alike were wowed by her innovative tumbling passes and her ability to compete under pressure. She had an amazing showing at the World Championships, but unbeknownst to her coaches and others around her, she was thinking about retiring throughout the entire meet.
Я прощалась со спортом, что вот эти последние соревнования, и я ухожу, я больше не выдерживаю.
Вам же 18 лет.
Понимаете, не сколько физическая нагрузка, сколько психологическая, потому что физически я была очень, не то что слаба, у меня, к сожалению, сил-то было не так много. И вылезала я только на именно технической подготовке и именно вот эмоциональном сосредоточении. Только вот на внутренней энергии. И поэтому, когда я встала на пьедестал, это было такое жуткое разочарование, потому что вот как озарение я поняла, что я чемпионка прошедшего чемпионата мира прошлого года. Что вот я сейчас сойду с этого пьедестала, и все надо начинать сначала. И хотела я уйти, но внутреннее ощущение, что никто меня не отпустит. И поэтому были слезы. Во время гимна были слезы, я представляю, что там думали. Но это были слезы разочарования.
The next year, Elena suffered a broken leg and was unable to attend the 1979 World Championships. That year, the Soviets lost the team medal to Romania, which made gymnastics coordinators furious. They decided to hang their hopes on Mukhina for the 1980 Olympics. They told her coach that she needed to get back into the gym immediately. After consulting team doctors at the Central Institute of Traumatology and Orthopedics, the Soviet gymnastics coordinators decided that her cast should be removed. Which they did, despite Elena begging them not to. She wasn't ready to go back in the gym. She knew her body hadn't healed. She knew they would force her back into elite training too soon, but the doctors didn't care what Elena herself had to say. After walking on the leg, Elena was positive that something wasn't right. They x-rayed the bone at the hospital and discovered that it hadn't healed properly. She needed emergency surgery and was rushed in. When Elena came out of anesthesia, a Soviet team coordinator was sitting next to her bed. She was in trouble. He told Elena that she was not a conscientious gymnast and that she would have to train in a cast until it could come off. When Elena finally returned to the gym, her coaches were unhappy with her body and forced her to diet to get back into shape. Her days were filled with exhausting exercise for weight loss in addition to training as an elite athlete, all on just a few hundred calories a day. All of this, and her leg was only partly healed. This grueling schedule ruled Elena's life for months. Just 2 weeks before the 1980 Olympic Games, the Soviets put more pressure on Elena. She began to struggle on one of her new skills, the Thomas Salto. Even exhausted with a broken leg, Elena still pounded away on her joints, repeating every one of her routines dozens of times, just like she did every day. She communicated constantly that she was hurting herself on this skill, but the coaches told her to stop being weak and suck it up. So she worked harder. That day, Elena was tired, hurt, and wanted to quit. But she continued as she had been taught. She moved on to training her Thomas Salto. The Thomas Salto was an innovative tumbling pass borrowed from men's gymnastics. It consisted of 1.5 backflips with 1.5 twists, with the gymnast landing upside down and rolling out of the element. The Thomas Salto was so dangerous that she was scared to practice it every day. Here's a quote from Elena later regarding the skill. "My injury could have been expected. It was an accident that could have been anticipated. It was inevitable. I had said more than once that I would break my neck doing that element. I had hurt myself badly several times, but he just replied, 'People like me don't break their necks.'" That fateful day, Elena was exhausted. She was suffering from many injuries due to bad landings and felt dizzy from malnutrition and too much exercise. She attempted the skill on her still healing leg. Elena under-rotated the pass, landing chin first and breaking her neck, severing her spinal cord. She woke up in the hospital a quadriplegic. Her first thought when she was injured was, "Thank God, now I don't have to go to the Olympics." 2 weeks later, Elena Davidova won the all-around at the 1980 Olympic Games, while Elena Mukhina remained in bed, unable to move. The Soviets tried hard to cover up what happened to Elena. They told reporters that the reason Elena didn't compete in the 1980 Olympics was that she had injured herself practicing a move she would need for the Games, so she was cut from the team. They even hinted to the press about a possible comeback in 1984. Gymnastics coordinator Yuri Titov even went so far as to tell the press, "All of the bad stories, they are not true," while he knew full well that Elena would never move again. Elena put some of the blame on herself for pushing herself too far, but that's exactly what she'd been brainwashed into doing since she began gymnastics. If you get hurt, you get up and try again. It was all she knew. The lies kept evolving as time went on. First, they told people she fell from the beam. Then they said she had blacked out and performed the skill while practically unconscious. But soon news began to leak about how serious her injuries actually were. Even then, officials put various spins on the situation in an effort to save face, going as far as to put the blame on Elena, claiming that she had taken it upon herself to attempt unauthorized routines, which was a blatant lie. The full truth about Elena's story did not become public knowledge until after the Gorbachev administration. After gymnastics, Elena spent her life bedridden. She became very well-read and verbally gifted, although she spent most of her life in seclusion. It's said that Elena didn't leave her apartment for years at a time. Her only public appearances were very few. Most notably, she attended the ceremony when the International Olympic Committee awarded her the Silver Medal of the Olympic Order. Afterwards, she used the very little mobility she had in her upper arm to scroll a brief, poignant thank you letter to the IOC. It read, "Dear Mr. Samaranch, thank you for the honor you have given me in awarding me the Olympic Order. It was the best New Year's greetings." The Thomas Salto was banned in women's gymnastics in 1992. It was still popular after the accident. Olympic all-around champion Yelena Shushinova even performed it in a different position. They banned the skill for women first, but it was still allowed in men's gymnastics until 2012. It took more people almost killing themselves to get them to ban this element. When an entire country places their hope in the hands of a little girl, the pressure can be suffocating. She was expected to bring home gold and nothing less. Elena Mukhina should have had the right to say, "No, I want to quit." She should have been able to tell her coaches that she was injured and not have to be pushed to train anyway. Gymnastics is a hell of a sport. As a former gymnast and a lifelong fan, I have seen far too much mistreatment of athletes. Health comes first, no matter if it is physical or mental. If a gymnast isn't in the right mental space, it can mean the difference between walking off the competition floor and being rolled out on a stretcher. I want to congratulate all the amazing athletes who competed in the Olympics this year. Simone Biles' decision not to perform when she wasn't mentally well was momentous. Athletes should always have a say in their health, and Simone is helping take back that right. Elena Mukhina died in September of 2006 due to complications from quadriplegia. She was 46 years old.
Я в свое время, когда очень уставала, я мечтала о том, ну когда же наступит момент, когда можно будет полежать столько, сколько хочется, почитать, и чтобы никто не доставал, чтобы никто не трогал. Желание осуществилось, я легла. Я могу лежать, я могу читать, и меня никто теперь не трогает. Ну какой ценой?
A girl was paralyzed because of the psychological pressures, brainwashing, and negligence on the part of team doctors and coaches. It was a horrible tragedy, and there's certainly more than one guilty party. Quite a bit of bad luck thrown in there too. This case is devastating, and nothing like this should ever happen again. Safety should come first. That's all for this week. I'll see you next time on Out of the Past.